Let's get started tonight. It is 6:30 p.m. on Monday the 3rd of February, 2025. This is the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that is a call to order. We do have a quorum, and we have everyone here, correct? One, two. Congratulations. So that moves us now to introduction of agenda and format of hearing, and that is for staff, please.
Thank you, Chair. For each item tonight, we'll have a call to order followed by a staff report. Afterward, we'll have the applicant make their presentation. Following that, we'll have opportunity for public comment in support or opposition. At that time, please state your name and address for the record. Be brief and to the point within a 3-minute time frame. And then afterwards, the commission and staff will have a brief discussion. And following that, the commission will vote to recommend approval as presented, approval with conditions, denial of the request, or to table the item. We have a lengthy consent agenda. You've got approval of minutes and then 3 extensions for preliminary plats out in Massey Oaks, and then 2 preliminary plats with Arcadian Estates Section 1 and 2. And then on for new business, you've got a final plat for Pearland Industrial Park, and then the final plat for Alexander Section 2. With that, Chair, I'll pass back to you.
All right, for the consent agenda, I am going to recuse myself and hand it over to Daryl, and also Ms. Ordino, Commissioner Ordino will also be recusing herself, so we'll step out.
I don't need that. Anyone wishing to remove anything from the consent agenda? Yeah, we need a motion to, we have a motion and a
Motion to
second.
approve. Second, Commissioner Oaks.
Does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing that we have none, no discussion. Go straight to the vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda, sign by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Vote carries 5-0. Turning it back over to Henry.
Thank you, and that brings us to items removed from the consent agenda, and I'm assuming there were none. So then we'll move straight forward to new business. And as Mr. Martin Griggs pointed out, we have 2 plats, final plats. And the first one is new business item number 1, consideration possible action plat 24-79. This is a final plat of Pearland Industrial Park. A request by Laura Hyder-Mays of Heinz-Said of RSG Engineering, the applicant on behalf of PIBP LLC and the City of Pearland owners for approval of the final plat of the Pearland Industrial Park, creating 4 lots and 2 reserves on 36.37 acres of land located on the southwest corner of Main Street and McHard Road. General location is the southwest corner of Main Street and McHard Road. How about a motion for approval and a second, please?
Commissioner McDonald to approve.
Commissioner Henrik, second.
Thank you, Chair. With that, let me introduce Patrick. Take it away.
Thank you, Martin. Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. As mentioned, the request before you right now is for the final plat. Sorry, kind of behind Martin. Final plat of Pearland Industrial Park for creating 4 lots and 2 reserves for an industrial park. And the request, as you can see, is the zoning of the property is the light industrial M1 zoning district, and we see that same zoning to the north and portion of the east and then to the south. And we see some planned unit development zoning to the west and to the south as well. And then a little bit of general commercial to the east and the northeast. Here is a view of the proposed final plat. Here's the 4 lots with one right here, one right here, one right here, and the last one right here with public roadways coming through. And then there's those 2 reserves are a restricted detention use, and then another one's for a essentially for signage. And so the preliminary plat was recently approved in July 2024. And since then, changes to the plat have only been minor. Kind of acreages of lots have changed, increase and decrease slightly. And then also the reserve for the signage was added, and that'll be dedicated solely for doing the monument sign for the development. And so looking at the approval criteria for a final plat, staff found that the request met the criteria and it conforms with the master plan and the preliminary plat. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the final plat as presented. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, sir. Always a great report. I'm sorry. We can go to applicant presentation if the applicant is here and wishes to make a presentation. Seeing no movement, we'll move on to persons wishing to speak for or against. Seeing no movement, that brings us to staff, commission, applicant discussion. Anybody have anything? Just one question. It mentioned that the city of Pearland was a part owner here. Just a clarification or understanding.
So the city has interest in a portion of the detention reserve. So we are part owners within that.
Fantastic. And then off the record, I'll ask you about how that signage worked, because I think that's interesting that we're going to have signage there for 4 users. And I know there's rules about property, et cetera, but I won't waste everybody's time. All right, if we have a motion and a second for approval and there's no other comments, let's take a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Measure passes 7-0, and that moves us to the next item, which is item number 2 under new business, consideration possible action plat 24-98, final plat of Alexander Section 2, a request by Patrick Lane, LJA Engineering, the applicant on behalf of 277 Danziger Investment LTD, owner, for approval of the final plat of Alexander Section 2, creating 164 lots, 9 reserves, and 6 blocks on 51.206 acres located south of Bailey Road and west of Main Street, which that is also the same general location. But a motion and a second for approval.
Commissioner Eisenberg, so moved.
Commissioner Echols, second.
Once again, Patrick, take it away.
Thank you, Martin. So as mentioned, the final plat is for Alexander Section 2, and it's to create 164 lots and 9 reserves for a subdivision. And this is part of the Alexander and Burns plan development. And this would be a second section, which in this image we can see Section 1 was that first part on the northern side of Bailey, and now moving forward with Section 2 with the final plat. And as mentioned, the part of the PD, then we have the Section 3 would be kind of more of the southern portion down below. And then it also has some light industrial zoning to the north and a portion of the east, and to the northeast is general commercial zoning. And here we get a look at the proposed final plat. Those 164 lots and 9 reserves. And so originally the preliminary plat was approved in 2022, and more recently, if you remember, it's probably on the consent agenda, but that preliminary plat expired and they had to get a new preliminary plat, so that was approved in November of 2024. And most of the changes similarly have been minor, such as street names, kind of relocation of street lights to ensure they comply, and then adding a water sewer easement to one of the reserves. So those are kind of the minor changes on the final plat. And so looking at the approval criteria for a final plat, staff found that the final plat met or conforms, to the master plan and the preliminary plat, as well as conforming with the approved plan development for Alexander Burns. And therefore, staff recommends approval of the final plat as presented. That concludes staff's report.
Thank you again. Is the applicant here, and does the applicant wish to make a presentation? All All right, seeing no movement, persons wishing to speak for or against? Again, seeing no movement, we'll head to staff, commission, applicant discussion. Anyone?
I just have one comment. I'm looking forward to seeing this as a neighborhood because I was here when the when they came to try to transfer this from commercial to neighborhood, but I think it's going to come out really nice. The other side of the street did, and I'm just glad that we made that decision. I think it was a good decision. So I'm excited to see the final product.
Well, then I just had to speak to that because I was on the other side. But again, I think as we move forward, especially with infill development, that we need to understand that subdivisions like this do not generate enough tax base to cover the expenses that they'll generate for our city. So we're going into this with a net negative, moving forward from expenses to tax base. So we're hurting ourselves long-term by continuing to invest in traditional subdivisions. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Seeing none or hearing no further discussions needed, we have a motion for approval and a second. So all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. I see 7 hands, so passes unanimously. And thank you. That brings us to discussion items, which is Roman numeral 7. And the first is the City Council update report.
Thank you, Chair. So on this last Monday's City Council agenda, there was one zone change request. This was for that property at Main and Bailey that y'all saw the rezoning from M2 to GC and recommended approval for. Council voted 6-1 to recommend approval for that. And it will be going to next Monday night's City Council for second reading for it to have its final reading. With that, that concludes the City Council update.
The next we have, our next P&Z meeting is February 17th, 2025. Usual time is 6:30 p.m., but I believe we have a special meeting prior at 5 p.m., correct? And that's a joint public hearing or a workshop discussing the Parks Department, if I understand correctly. Okay,
The Parks Master Trail Plan.
fantastic. Is there anyone that knows they cannot attend at this time?
Is there a way for us to get this more than 3 days in advance? I mean, I'm assuming
Define this.
plan, the park master plan.
Okay.
I think it's one of the workshops to discuss the Parks Master work plan. I
It's
don't
not-
believe it's
so not
already
a
been.
draft that's been done. It's going into drafting a new plan. Okay.
But if not, if I'm mistaken, we'll follow up with staff and see if it could be circulated ahead of time.
We'll definitely get an agenda at least.
All right, and try that again. Am I allowed to ask how we're going along with the UDC rewrite that's not a rewrite? Can we put that on the agenda? For our meeting, I guess.
Are you just looking to see where it is in the process?
Yes.
So as long as there's no dialogue and it is a staff update on where we are in the process, there's a provision in the Texas Open Meeting Act that allows for that. Of course, the fear is always that once you get a report on that, somebody tries to have a question about it, then it becomes dialogue, and then it becomes a violation. So what I would encourage us to do is just in whatever staff correspondence, send out an update to P&Z, letting y'all know where we are in the process, and avoid any potential issues.
Fair enough. All right, if there's nothing else, then let's call this meeting adjourned at 6:45. That's record time.